Evening, speakers and attendees. I'm Professor Ambekar. I'm senior researcher associated with FINS activities for last about 8 years. FINS, though, was formed somewhere in 2003 uh, with people, like I would say, like-minded people from different domains, somewhere from defense forces, somewhere from academia, somewhere from industry, uh, and researchers, so lawyers, not to forget, and with a differentiation that hitherto, like many wrong notions prevail, as Dushyant sir was pointing out. Uh, Security, even today, is largely understood to be border security. So, FINS, that is Forum for Integrated National Security, took upon itself to sensitize various stakeholders, not only border security, but security in many aspects which affect the people, the states, the nation, and which could cover water security, environment security, economic security, cyber security, to name few. Uh, as a think tank, evolving think tank, Finns have many streams or verticals, I would say, and some of the important ones are uh, it has got a research and publication arm, or arm would say, or a vertical, whereby one, it comes out with a peer-reviewed quarterly journal, that is journal on diplomacy and strategy, and eminent people on contemporary topics do write, which is peer-reviewed, and it has got wide circulation in different quarters, including some of the government departments. We also publish fortnightly bulletin, which is not a peer-reviewed, but still we get quite a good response, and the contributions are really making people aware on different facets or aspects when it comes to security. Uh, Not so regularly, but we also publish. If we find the people associated with FINS have books, written books, and which are of importance from security perspective. So that is so far as when we say publication. Uh, since we believe that if senior people, because of the wisdom and the experience that they carry, but unless it is passed on to the younger generation of our society, which matters a lot if you look at next 30, 40, 50 years of future. So we try to create a platform for them by taking them as junior researchers. Initially, we encourage them to select a topic of their choice, and the pool of people available with FINS, they act as a guide. And when we find that their research is reaching to a particular level, we extend such internships, which may start from 3 months. We take it up to 1 year, and if it really takes it shape and size, then we even publish it in some of our publication. And this is how we connect the younger people who think on various aspects, and which matters a lot in shaping the opinion and overall shaping of a society. Second important aspect, which FINS as an organization, think tank, is aligned. It has taken up a flagship program kicked off by the government, PM Narendra Modi ji, on Sagar, security and growth for all in the region. And in that pursuit, till now, FINS has organized two international conferences. Both are at Goa. First one was in the domain of sea, water, and second was in space. First one was in 2017, which was participated by senior diplomats and representatives from about 22 countries. And it was also supported by Indian organization, which contribute a lot when it comes to ocean economy, including security for sure. Second one was space, again, which was supported by ISRO and similar organization, and this time it was participated by about 17 countries. Once the conference, which is about 2.5 days, gets over, we prepare a kind of a report, and which is sent to select people for maybe to takeaways or some action points which find some attention or merit even at policy level. Uh, we also have an yearly flagship program whereby late Sri Manohar Parikarji, we conduct a memorial lecture in this pursuit, because we believe that if I think this is not my domain, but still, however, correct me, sir, if I'm going wrong. When it comes to defense forces and having some policies and security perspective, I think in a very short tenure, Parikarji has contributed a lot, given some direction. How far it is being continued thereafter could become a matter, but still, however, his contribution nobody can deny. So we have one of the series yearly program. We conduct a memorial lecture in remembrance of late Sri Manohar Parikar. Thereafter, we have on contemporary topics roundtable meetings wherein we call domain experts on that particular topic. We create kind of an agenda. We have cross discussions, views, counter views, and again, a kind of a document, not exactly really call it as white paper or otherwise, but we prepare a document again which is circulated to people who are supposed to take action or at least think over, so that while making policy decisions, these points are taken into account. We interact with various organizations, embassies, consulates regularly to have a kind of a to and fro viewpoints exchange or discussion. We are closely associated with few of the universities because we intend and we are about to launch a certification program, especially on defense journalism, strategic management, and whereby it could be those who are interested, kind of interest. So for them, it could be a certification program. Those who take their interest further and can contribute with their experience, for them, it could be a diploma course. And there could be an advanced course for people who want to practice it and look at it as stepping stone for shaping their career. And we draw quite a huge response from students who pursue their graduation from politics, economics, history, and from there, those who do post-graduation, MPhil, PhD, they are the people who are associated in these activities. Now, with this kind of brief on FINS activities, I welcome again all of you on series of this different topics. And I think today's on Pakistan, again, the neighbor, when our neighbors are disturbed neighbors, I think what could be the impact? This is a very apt time. And for this, I hand over the podium, the virtual podium, to Dr. Kulkarni for taking it forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Ambedkar. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be with you all on this particular important webinar on National Security Policy of Pakistan 2022-26 and its implication to India. Now, the context of this webinar is based upon the release of National Security Policy of Pakistan. It has been displayed by the Pakistan government as first such policy document with guidelines for achieving the set of national security goals. The policy has been prepared by Pakistan's National Security Division, what we call as NSD, after 7 years of diligent and rigorous analysis and consultation with various multiple stakeholders. Now, considering the geopolitically sensitive location of our neighbor Pakistan, as it bordered by India to the east, Afghanistan to the west, Iran to the southwest, and China to the northeast. It is separated narrowly from Tajikistan by Afghanistan's Wakhan corridor in the north, and also it shares its maritime border with Oman. Now, the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, which is famously known as the Durand Line, which runs around 2,600 kilometers long. It is a very porous border, and it runs through a very rough terrain. While Pakistan's border with India, with whom it has fought 4 wars since 1947, runs through around 3,300 kilometers. And Indian states and union territories such as Gujarat, Rajasthan, Punjab, J&K and Ladakh share this border with Pakistan. Now, I'd like to quote it here, Adam Smith, one of the famous political economists. He said that the defense expenses as the first duty of any government. And the government of Pakistan is no exception to this. The first Prime Minister of Pakistan, Liaquat Ali Khan, in 1948, he mentioned the defense of the state is our foremost consideration, and it dominates all other our government activities. If you just see the current spending of Pakistan on defense is roughly 10 billion US dollar annually, and it is around 4% of the Pakistan's GDP if we just check it. And Pakistan is today one of the top 10 importers of the arms globally. We are at the number 1 position. Pakistan is currently at the number 10 position. And why Pakistan do all such things to defend against the religiously inspired revolts, ethnic separatism, and of course they pursue their important adversary India as a major threat. If you just see the current condition of Pakistan, it is into a political and economic turmoil. It has very high unemployment rate. It has very high inflation. It is running into a current account deficit. Its foreign currency reserves has drastically gone down, and their gross domestic external debt, domestic as well as external debt, is currently at sky high. So it is hardly any surprise that the current policy document has places economic security at the core of comprehensive national security. As just mentioned by Professor Ambedkar, security is not only the border issue, but there are some other facets of the security which is also very important. Now, this policy has taken a note of economic stability along with socio-economic inequalities which are there, and it focuses primarily on reducing the 3 challenges of national security, that is Pakistan's national security, which is emanating from external imbalances, vertical and horizontal inequalities. Now, it is very important from our perspective, that is Indian perspective, to analyze the implication of Pakistan's defense policy, which has many contours and shades, and it reflects diverse issues such as economic safety, energy, health and food security, cyber security, and hybrid warfare. Now, in order to discuss all these issues, we have today a very esteemed panel, which comprises of General PG Kamath sir, then we have General Dushyant Singh sir, and we have Dr. Vaibhavi Palsule madam. Now, all these 3 personalities, they are having a diverse and very rich experience in and of the field. So we welcome all of you here, and we'll start the proceeding with our first speaker of the evening. The first speaker of the evening is General PG Kamath sir, who is a recipient of Ati Vishisht Seva Medal and Param Vishisht Seva Medal. He is a distinguished general who has held the most coveted appointments in Indian Army. He is a well-known commentator on the defense and national security issues. He is an alumnus of Sainik School, Vijapur, and National Defense Academy, Khadakwasla, Pune. He was commissioned into the Indian Army through Madras Regiment in June 1973. A noted scholar warrior, he is a graduate of Defence Service Staff College, the Higher Command Courses, and the prestigious National Defence College. His enviable repertoire of staff appointments include the prestigious tenure of Defence Advisor to the Indian High Commissioner in Malaysia, the significant position of Additional Military Secretary at the Army Headquarters, and the Chief of Staff at Command Headquarters. So I request everyone to please put up your hand together and welcome General Kamath sir. Sir, over to you now. Thank you.
Hind to all of you. It's a privilege to me to be here.
Jai.
First of all, when we talk of Pakistan and its national policy, we should never dispose it off as one more stunt. Anything of an adversary, however small, big, large, doesn't matter. We should have a healthy respect to our adversary and look at all the aspects very coolly, plan it deliberately, and if possible, during the execution, crush him in the battle. So I want to take this as a very serious document, notwithstanding, and then we'll come to a conclusion how it is. More so when we ourselves do not have a national security doctrine or a national security policy, which the Honorable Prime Minister had told the NSA way back in 2018 to have. We still don't have one. So let's take his national security policy very seriously. First of all, it is fair admission on part of Pakistan that it is people-centric. Means so far it was not people-centric. That is one confession you have to understand. It was army-centric. Actually, when you talk of a national security policy, it is the people first. Food security, water security, defense, everything revolves around people, which has never been with Pakistan. And at last they have thought that we'll make it people-centric. Before I go further, there are three odd salient points in the national security policy of Pakistan. First is, he says it is centrality of geo-economics. That means you have to improve, please mark my words, in their own words, improve defense and human security. The priority is still defense and human security comes next. Now, how do you increase the pie, he asks. And then he says, we have got a geostrategic location, our geo-connectivity with the Central Asia, Eurasia, West Asia, and South Asia gives us a unique position to enhance our geo-economics. If that is so, then the third point comes. Whom are you connected with? As rightly told, between Afghanistan and Pakistan, everything's are not all right. TTP, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, helped the Taliban to take over a country. And all their forces were involved during their struggle. And now TTP will take its pound of flesh from Taliban to tell that, yes, now you help me out to take over Pakistan. So there is a not nexus, there is a complete understanding between the TTP and Taliban, and I expect this border, that is Durand Line, to be explosive in times to come. Recently, airstrikes have been struck by Pakistan in Kunar and coast provinces in order to destroy the TTP, and it has not been taken very kindly by the Taliban. So if that is so, then let us look at its east. With India, what connectivity it has with India? Nothing. The MFN status which India had given right back in 1996 was withdrawn in 2019. Just to give 50,000 tons of wheat, we could not do it. It has to go through the UN food program. So where is the connectivity, the very edifice of Pakistan to improve their geo-economics? Is, first of all, North Central Asian Republic through Afghanistan is a question mark. Asia, the East, is a question mark. And the very edifice of his improvement of the economic pie in order to increase its resources, in order to feed its defense and human security, is itself the edifice is weak. There is no takeoff point at all. Now let us here look at the economics. IMF, it is the 13th bailout. And $6 billion were given to Imran Khan with lot of conditionalities, which I will not tell now. Then the new Prime Minister went to Saudi Arabia and got $8 billion. National debt is $300 billion and debt versus GDP is 101.92%. Why are the other 56 Islamic countries are not helping her out? They have been told by IMF, increase taxes, do devaluation, and also they have told one more thing to what you call pay external debt as well. Then what they profess, most important, there is a paradigm shift when it is dealing with India. Dealing with India, paradigm shift, we want to have a lot of peace with India, provided the core issues Kashmir is solved. Just like India telling, we'll have 200 years of peace with Pakistan, and we'll only have once we get the Gilgit, Baltistan, Stardu, Mirpur, Muzaffarpur, and right up to Bimber we have, then we'll have no issues with Pakistan, we'll have peace with them. So absolutely, you are back to square one. Or we telling we'll have 200 years of peace with Pakistan, as and when Balochistan becomes independent. Because these are intractable issues. And absolutely, if that is the rider, where do you think is the paradigm shift? I don't see any paradigm shift in Pakistan's policy towards India. It is basically for the consumption of the international audience and also to the FATF. I hope you know this policy was launched on 14th January this year, and the FATF, what you call, sat down to assess where Pakistan has to go between 2nd and 4th March 2022, and it is still in the grey list, which it has been for the past 4 years. Very interesting was there was a program at Al Jazeera. In that, Dr. Yusuf, who is the NSA, came into being. He was quite an youngster, quite an articulate person. And when he was asked about India, there was such a vituperative, vitriolic, absolutely hatred emanating, just exuding like a volcano from him against India. I was just thinking, this emotional hatred is good. Thinking at tactical level, the hate, that emotion in your planning is quite okay. But when you're planning a strategy of a country, if you have so much of hatred, Hindutva is telling is so bad. Himself, he wants to make it what we call Riyasat-e Madina. Riyasat-e Madina means what the Holy Prophet wanted to have, converting the entire population into one religion. He wants to have. That is the aim. That is there in the very first, in the Prime Minister's statement, what he wants to have. And he is telling about the Hindutva, which is regressive and all. And then literally the anchor has to told him to give him a shut-up call. As the Indian representative is not there, I think you should not talk of it. Now, there is one biggest thing we have in our, this one is, there is a biggest weakness in the policy of Pakistan, is the IWT 1960, Indus Water Treaty. Indus Water Treaty gives 80% of the Indus Basin water to the Pakistan. This is a document which was signed in 1960, in which Nehru had given all this as a national asset to Pakistan. The moment you stop or redirect these waters, we can literally emaciate Pakistan. We had a seminar in the Brahma Research Foundation recently. If we can emaciate Pakistan, because its entire economy, entire agricultural economy is based on this Indus water. And if we make adequate hydro infrastructure in order to divert these waters, because there we have no basis to continue. In the Vienna Convention for Treaties and Agreement of the UN, there is a provision to break out on this treaty when there is absolutely the friendship do not prevail. When there are fundamental changes in circumstances, this IWT can be revoked. Hasn't Pakistan revoked our Simla Agreement, where in 1972, 93,000 prisoners were sent back, prisoners of war were sent back? Not a word of that in the document between, while talking of India, between the India-Pak relationship. For us, it hinges on Simla Pact of 1972. Simla Agreement, but not a word about it. He has revoked it as it is. So there is a good scope for us, good chance for us, good opportunity for us to weaponize this water resource in order to see that the waters, even if we threaten that the IWT we will revoke in times to come, is enough, is an adequate weapon to really coerce Pakistan. It will literally emaciate him. Then there are certain humor also in this document. You'll find he says CPEC is a national consensus with entire as if Balochistan is not a part of Pakistan. Where is it the national consensus? The explosions and attacks are taking place every day in Balochistan against CPEC. And next humor is India is spreading disinformation targeting Pakistan as if India doesn't have anything better to do. Pakistan has got enough capability to cause disinformation about itself by its very actions. And third, and quite humorous, is it is a leading voice in debt relief for developing countries. Leading voice means what for developing? It itself is asking debts for the 13th bailout I told you of the IMF. It has gone to China and begged. It has gone to Saudi Arabia and gone begged. It has gone to Indian IMF, International Monetary Fund, and begged. And in order to make a virtue out of a vice, they have said it's the leading voice. So if you really see that Pakistan has made this national security policy with no paradigm shift in any level. So whatever implications India had prior to will continue later. So about the implications, I will tell in my next session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your opening and valuable remarks. You rightly mentioned that there is no paradigm shift in this particular Pakistan's policy in concern with the India, and the economic condition is absolutely not good, which the way they are diverting the attention. We'll come back to you again. The next speaker for today evening is Dr. Vaibhavi Palsule, who's Associate Professor and Head of the Department Political Science in RN Ruia College, Matunga, Mumbai. Madam has a teaching experience of 28 years and currently holds the position of a Vice Principal at Ruia College. She has authored 2 books and many research articles, both in English and Marathi. She is associated as a research guide with the Department of Civics and Politics, University of Mumbai and Naval War College, Goa. Her research interest includes international relations and Indian foreign policy. We welcome you, ma'am, again on this particular webinar, and over to you. We are eager to hear it from you on this very important topic. Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
The members of FINS and also my esteemed panelists. I am very junior to, the esteemed people, but I would look at this policy from the academic perspective as I belong to this field. So I would start rather from the academic point of view, looking at this policy as how academicians look at this policy. The first important thing that when I was reading about the policy, the first important thing that struck was that the policy was framed by the National Security Advisor Moeed Yusuf, who himself is an academician who comes from the academic background. And this is something which is very rare, that in Pakistan's security establishment, some academic, the person belonging to academics is forming a national security policy. Is something very unique, very different. Also, it has been said and mentioned that this policy is the product of 7 years of rigorous consultations, and it includes people from academics, it includes people from the civil society, it includes people from industry, different sectors of the society. So again, this is something different because Pakistan never has, that history of involving the civil society. Now, how far it is correct is a different thing, but at least the policy claims to have representation from from these different sectors of the society, which is also unique. Again, what is important about this national security policy, as I feel, is that the language that is used, and when Moid Yusuf was asked that why only the policy is in English and why not in Urdu when the policy is meant for all the people and the version is published, a selected part of it is published. He says that the policy is going to be published in Urdu. Currently, it is in English, but the language used is very flowery, except whatever the words are used for India. Because with respect to India, we know that very harsh words are used. But apart from that, the policy uses very flowery language, very popular words or terminologies. It includes the globally highlighted issues, politically correct statements. There is a lot of emphasis on geoeconomics, geopolitics. So the words which are in trend, they are used. There is also mention of Islamic welfare state, the important issues like regional connectivity, shared prosperity, human security, unity in diversity, a comprehensive strategic document. So it is worded very carefully, and this is possibly because it is the person belonging to academics was on the main framing part, played his role in the main framing part. Dr. Yusuf says that priority has to be given to the revival of economy by current and future governments, a very important statement. So the policy is meant to be only for 5 years, 22 to 26, but the words that are used itself say that the policy may continue even after that. The governments may change it, bring out changes, because we know Pakistan's stability is always a question, and so the coming governments may change it. But what Yusuf says, that it is very difficult to totally overthrow this policy. So any government that comes into power would continue, maybe with some changes, continue with this policy, which is very important. He says that the policy aims at filling a gap between national ambitions and reality. And he also talks about then the centrality of economic reforms. It says that geostrategic vision that the policy adopts supplements geo-economic vision that the policy adopts supplements the geostrategy. So geostrategy is not sidelined, it is not secondary, but geo-economic vision is only going to supplement it. So implications are very clear that there is little change in Pakistan's geopolitical ambitions, a change in priorities of stabilizing the national economy. The reasons are obvious, that the fiscal situation is deteriorating, the relations with the neighbors are deteriorating, and so the focus is on geo-economy, so that it becomes a kind of attractive package for the other nations to get involved with Pakistan. The national security policy document also says, or also talks about Pakistan as something strategic, as a country which is strategically very important country in South Asia. And because it is a very strategically very important country, it has to be taken note of by the other nations. So a connectivity with South Asia, the West Asia, Africa, the Central Asia, the connectivity, for this connectivity purpose, role of Pakistan becomes very important, and therefore the people should the country should take note of this. Now, if we look at the national security policy write-up or whatever is published, we will see that there is no much emphasis on India, in the sense that India is mentioned very few times. What does it imply? It implies that Pakistan wants to look beyond India. So India is a major security threat, no doubt. Pakistan in this national security policy also proclaims it very clearly that, and as sir had said earlier, that everything, the harsh words are used against India, that India is Hindutva dominated and ideologically extreme country, and it wants to have a role, self-proclaimed role of a net security provider in Indian Ocean, and it has a very hegemonic designs, and also India-Pakistan relations are frozen because of India. So a very harsh words used at India, but what Pakistan proclaims by designing this policy is that though India is a major security threat, Pakistan wants to go beyond, and therefore it is for the first time we can see that it is a blend. The national security policy blends the traditional and the non-traditional security issues. And towards the end of the document, that is the eighth section of this national security policy, basically focuses on human security. So population, healthcare, prosperity, trade, water, food, and especially gender security. So, these kind of words are used with the simple agenda that the the national security policy claims to have included the interest of the civil society. So it is the people-centric document. It has always said that the security, or the approach of security is people-centric. So what do people of Pakistan want? They want economic stability, they want gender equality, they want security or the freedom from wants, and all this is being promised by the national security policy. So in that sense, it claims to have a very, very comprehensive approach towards security. And in the history of Pakistan, we do not see that Pakistan anyway any time talking about these aspects of security or human security or even the non-traditional security. So we will see that especially the issues like gender security, Pakistan has never talked or never thought of it, which comes as a part of this national security policy. So we can say that even the national security policy is a kind of acceptance that Pakistan is in a state of flux. It is in a in a state of bad conditions, and therefore it needs to reform. And therefore, Pakistan wants to tell the world that it is not looking at security only from the perspective of India, but it is looking at the world. It wants to show the world that Pakistan is changing. Pakistan is not merely talking about its relations with India, but Pakistan is changing. Pakistan is giving importance to economy. Pakistan is giving importance to security. And so the policy is basically for the international security. Policy is not about the traditional security merely. It is for the non-traditional threats. It is for addressing the economic vulnerabilities of Pakistan. And Pakistan also in this whole document admits that the problems that Pakistan is facing, that is imbalanced economic growth, is affecting the national cohesion in Pakistan. So basically Pakistan seems to highlight also why the need for this kind of policy, and weakening social cohesion, increasingly unmanageable economic situation, and in addition, very importantly, the China factor, because increasingly we know that Pakistan is seen as a client state of China, and therefore it wants to re-establish its link with United States, get the support from the Islamic world, and therefore, the traditional partners of Pakistan must be again brought back, and the long standing hostility with the neighborhood to be managed. So Imran Khan and the national policy says that we do not want to have a war with India for next 100 years. It is a hollow statement, no doubt, because Pakistan doesn't want to, want to have any adjustments as far as its policy towards India is concerned. So Pakistan's policy towards India has not changed at all. But what actually Pakistan wants to depict or show that it is more interested in addressing its own issues rather than just talking about India. So basically, Pakistan stands as far as LOC has not changed. What is again unique, however, what I found was that this time when Pakistan made the policy, it has also tried to get the responses from the provinces. And especially more important is Azad Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit Baltistan. And this is a thing that is to be, taken care or taken note by India. Because in all earlier policy documents of Pakistan, we see that Azad Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit Baltistan were never specifically mentioned. Pakistan always took a stand that it is a disputed territory, and so Pakistan had not mentioned it. But now claiming that it is a provincial consensus behind this policy, and this provincial consensus includes Azad Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit Baltistan, in a way we can say that Pakistan is trying to legitimize its claim over Gilgit Baltistan and Azad Jammu and Kashmir, which is a thing to worry for Pakistan, for India. And the policy also talks about internal challenges that Pakistan is facing, but claims that it is the external hand that is responsible for internal challenges. So regional imbalance is caused by the internal problems, but it is fueled by India, because the separatist movements are fueled by India. So, anti-national movements in Pakistan, that is kind of Baluch separatist movement, they are the result of India fueling this movement. India has the hegemonic designs as far as Kashmir is concerned. There is just little reference to the change that was made in 2019. There is no much discussion, but the more focus is in the hegemonic designs of India and the Hindutva-driven policies and armed build-up of India. In a way, by doing this, Pakistan is trying to justify its aggressive stand vis-a-vis India. So this is the thing that is to be taken care of. Anti-India attitude of Pakistan has not been changed, and rather, when the discussion was on how to rebuild the relationship with India, Abdul Basit, the former High Commissioner to India, he said that resuming dialogue and trade with India would be a mistake of massive proportions. So it proves that Pakistan's attitude towards India has not been changed, though the policy is for international community, not for India. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. You rightly mentioned about that this particular policy has been framed by an academician, and many contours has been highlighted. And one of the important thing is there's very less emphasis given on this policy on India. But if you just study it again, even the less emphasis also given on USA, which is a little bit strange. The US is not mentioned. Of course, J&K is mentioned with only 113 words if you just count it through Jammu and Kashmir. So this is little deviation from their policy. And what you said was right, that they want to integrate the human security and the gender security with a traditional and non-traditional total economic security put together. So with this, we'll move on to our third speaker for the day, and then again we'll come back to all three speakers at one go. The third speaker of the evening is General Dushyant Singh. He's joining us all the way from Lucknow. General Dushyant Singh is a recipient of Param Vishisht Seva Medal and Ati Vishisht Seva Medal. He was commissioned into the 9th Battalion of Maratha Light Infantry Regiment in December 1981. He is an alumni of National Defence College, DCCS, and College of Defence Management, as well as Naval Postgraduate School, California, USA. He has attended the Regional Defense Counterterrorism Program with specialization in terrorist operations and financing in US. He has served in a varied terrains and theater of operation in India and in the UN as a military observer. He has been an instructor of human resource development in the College of Defense Management, Secunderabad. He also holds the distinction of having served twice in the Elite National Security Guards as the Deputy Inspector General Operations and the Inspector General Operation. For his distinguished services, he has been awarded with Ati Vishisht Seva Medal as well as Param Vishisht Seva Medal. Besides contributing regularly in various defense journals and newspapers, he is also written chapters in 2 books, and the name of the books are Understanding Suicide Terrorism, in which he has wrote a chapter on deterring terrorism, and the second book, The Countering Terrorism, Psychological Strategies, in which he has contributed through way of a chapter on the impact of virtual world in creation and sustenance of terrorism, which were published by a very popular publication known as Sage Publication. He is a prolific reader, writer, and a keen sportsman. He writes regularly in leading dailies and military journals. You can hear him on web with DushyantSpeak.com. So we're glad that, sir, you are here, and we'd like that you should share your views with today's August gathering. So welcome again, sir, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Forum for Integrated National Security and all its members for having invited me to share my thoughts on this very contemporary topic of national security policy of Pakistan, 2022 to 2026, which they say or claim that they are going to review every month and periodically every 6 months. I don't know how a national security policy can be reviewed every month, given the fact that the changes in the Pakistani government take place every month. So with that thought, I shall move on for the national security policy dissection, or as the Pakistanis call it, forensics of national security policy 2022-2026. The other day, I was listening to a webinar recording conducted by the Pakistan Air University, and with a pleasant surprise that the panel consisted of 3 ladies. They were all professors in the various universities of Pakistan, and there were 2 gentlemen, both again professors. So in a Pakistani Air University, we found a academic gathering trying to do a forensic analysis of the national security policy, and certain very interesting things came out, because I always feel that it is better to understand a policy from the eyes of our adversary, how they view a national security policy of theirs, as far as their view on this particular important aspect is concerned. And what I realized was that the bulk of the speakers were hailing the policy as unique, progressive, human-centric, as all of you have described. And for that, I must thank General Kamath and Dr. Vaibhavi Palsule that they have already covered the content of the policy in quite great detail. So for a third speaker, it becomes very easy to do a little bit of direct comments and observation on the policy. So thank you very much, sir and ma'am, for having analyzed the policy so well. But seeing it from a Pakistani eye, I found that the 2 gentlemen, Professor Tugal Yami, he's professor in National University of Science and Technology, Pakistan, and Professor Azhar Ahmed, he's also a professor in one of their universities. Both were quite critical of the policy. Their basic premise was that how can geoeconomics be at the center or core of a national security policy? As per, in fact, Azhar Ahmed, economics is the symptom, cause is geopolitics. And to that extent, I tend to agree. It's the geopolitics which results in all the chaos in a country or in its external environment. So therefore, unless you sort out the geopolitics, the geoeconomics will not get ahead. And I'll substantiate my view as I go along. First of all, I found that the 2 basic precepts on which this particular policy has been based is that human security has been placed as priority 1. And to ensure that human security is ensured, there has been a shift made, or you can say from military centric or geopolitics to geoeconomics. Fine so far. But is the reality on ground supporting this? Is my question. Some quick thoughts on this fact that why did they come up with this policy change? I mean, till now, even the policy document, as General Kamath said, highlights that we are now going to be human centric, which means that till now they were military centric. So why was this change required? And the reasons which I give for this is, first was the international isolation of Pakistan. If you see, barring China and to some extent Turkey and Organization of Islamic Countries, even they are withdrawing their, I mean, they're not giving them a wholehearted support. Pakistan today has been virtually isolated. So it was forced to convey a moderate image. And what best way is to pick up a document which was started in 2014 under Nawaz Sharif and comes into being under Imran, who is ousted after 3 months. So to me, it appeared to be an exercise to tell the world that we are changing, tell the FATF that we are changing, and that you should not put us in the grey list. Give us the doles which we want so that we can recover. The second reason which I say is why this policy was, the policy change was done, was that the Pakistan has been witnessing a deep divide inside its own country. Today, if you see, the Baloch are on the high. TTP is now joined hands with the Afghan Taliban, as highlighted by General Kamath. So I'm not going to dwell on that, why they are doing it. You see, the basic reason is TTP feels that if Afghan Taliban can achieve success against America, why can't TTP achieve success against the Pakistani, Punjabi-dominated central government of Pakistan? Now, this is something which is driving TTP to collaborate with the Baloch Liberation Army as well as with the Afghan Taliban to create problems for Pakistan. So therefore, how should Pakistan get over it? So therefore, they have said, okay, all our internal problems, they have contained this in this policy, and Dr. Palsule also highlighted this, that all our internal problems have a locus standi external, without giving any concrete reasons as to how externally they are dependent. Without mentioning India, of course, the whole target was that India is creating the problems for them. So therefore, somewhere driving force behind this national security policy remains geopolitics. And hence, the centrality of geopolitics is not going to go. The third reason which I feel, which led to this change in the Pakistan's policy, has been the economic crisis. Now, you see, the whole world has got affected by COVID, but the Russia-Ukraine war has further made the situation worse. What is more important is mismanagement of Pakistan's economy. Today, if you look at it, and this was highlighted by Dr. Anant, if I'm not wrong, that inflation stands at 12.7%. The energy cost is over 120 rupees. I'm talking of the diesel cost. Diesel cost, mind you. Then the external debt is at 51.724 trillion Pakistani rupees. It's mind-boggling. The IMF loans are at 1.188 trillion. The Chinese loan cannot be restructured. There is all the scope, or there is all the indications that Gwadar port is now being taken over by Pakistan. So after Hambantota, if Gwadar goes to China, then just club the submarines, 18 plus 62. Submarines will be floating in the Arabian Sea. That is something which should worry us as far as this policy is concerned. So why I'm saying is that it is a facade created to get more economic aid and continue to remain afloat. So how can they get the economic aid? Of course, by reorientating their policy to say that it is now focused on geoeconomics and not geopolitics. next issue is the declining support in the OIC. No, virtual international isolation is one thing, but declining ideological and economic. Mind my first word, ideological also. The Saudi Arabia has just barely given them aid to remain afloat. The other countries are totally ignoring them. There are two reasons for why the OIC countries are doing this. First, there has been a massive US drawdown from the Middle East and the West Asia. There used to be 120,000 troops placed in the West Asia, Middle East. Today, there are only 60,000. And these numbers, as what I read a few days back, are going to be reduced further to about 25 to 30,000. They're questioning why should Kuwait have 6,000 troops of America? What threat do they have? So what I'm trying to say is those countries are now fending for themselves as far as threat as Iran and Israel are concerned. Their priorities have changed. In fact, the Saudi Arabian prince did not even pick up the phone of America. And that is something which is, and their UAE has given a statement today that they have not put any ban on Russia. So what I'm saying is the global order is changing. So they have to get the OIC on board. So therefore, they have come out with this policy. And fifthly, here I would like to say that although not major mention has been made of India and its neighbors, the Pakistanis are trying to project a moderate image. And to that extent, I'll cover later on, they are trying to also say that they would like to interact with India in all other issues independent of Kashmir. That means trade, etc. We can get along with India, but Kashmir issue we will not touch. Can this really happen with India saying that terrorism and talks don't go together? I think it's just a hogwash to tell the Western world that, look, we have tried from our side to approach our neighbors to mend our ways. So these 4 or 5 issues which I said have been the primary reasons why this national security policy had a reorientation and a different approach from the past. But coming down to the next issue, has there been really a reorientation? I question this very basic premise, and this I am doing it both from the perspective of the Pakistani speakers who have been speaking on various forums, saying that geopolitics has to remain at the center and not geoeconomics. Even the academic background of NSA, who has prepared this policy, and the fact that he has consulted with many academicians of the Pakistani polity, there are people who are questioning, who are saying, why wasn't this policy passed by the National Assembly? If it was a policy evolved after a consultative process, then it should have been passed by the National Assembly. The government of Pakistan didn't even have the heart to actually take it to the parliament. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is that it is a facade. It is a facade. Next issue which I would like to highlight is that the policy itself also says, and Dr. Palsule also mentioned, that it supplements the geopolitics. So what is supplementing? Economics. So what is the core? Geopolitics. Even the words have been very cleverly worded in the national security policy, that geoeconomics will supplement the geopolitics. If my focus is human security, I should say that geoeconomics will supplement the sustainable development of the human beings of Pakistan, and not that it will supplement the military-centric approach. And this is exactly the next point which I'm trying to get at, is that Pakistan continues to spend 4% of its GDP, with its foreign ex reserves dwindling to 11 billion as of last month. $11 billion. How? And here I see an opportunity for India. I think the best case for India is that continue to prod Pakistan to spend more and more on the defense. Its economy will start falling further and further. It will get into chaos, and I think it will implode inside. But as they say, as Christine Fair says, that Pakistan thrives on chaos. And when that happens, the Pakistan military will step in and possibly try to start a new process of governance. The next issue is why the focus can't change are the various geopolitical factors which are today harrowing Pakistan. Rising Taliban TTP nexus, I've already said, increasing confrontation with Afghan Taliban over the Dushan line. I mean, the focus has to remain external. Baluch TTP cooperation. I mean, it's not far when Panjgore and Naushki were attacked by BLA, and Pakistan really suffered badly in these two attacks. The Chinese are raising concerns over the security of CPEC. How can Pakistan ignore that at the cost of geoeconomics? So therefore, in fact, I don't know how far it is true. I heard yesterday on the TV that the Chinese are requesting permission to ensure security of CPEC, which would mean Chinese presence militarily in Pakistan, which would directly feed into Pakistan becoming today it is only a vassal, so-called perceived vassal state. It will become actually a vassal state. Look at the US, mention of US. People have, the moderator has said that US has been mentioned in a very, very minor way. And that too, it is annoyed because it did not include Pakistan in the various regional groupings. Basically, they are hinting at India being included in the Quad and Pakistan was left out of it, which has not been taken kindly by the US. So to me, it appears that Pakistan will have to somehow retain its focus. The economic swing is a temporary swing only to supplement the geopolitics. And the last thing is, it is also worried the car countries are going out of its influence. The car countries today, the Central Asian republics, are today trying to develop relations with India via Iran. And that is not a good sign for... and look at Pakistan. Iran has actually criticized Pakistan the least, but they have made no mention of Iran, just because of Sunni Shia differences over the two countries. So if you're going to play faith politics in national security, Professor Tugal Yami says that I have never seen a national security policy which is based on Islam or based on faith. If you read any national security policy of any world, any country in the world, you will never find mention of religion in national security politics. It's only in Pakistan that this has been mentioned. Wherever there are national security policies, in fact, India does not have a national security policy. The reasons for that are same, and we can discuss that later on. Why I feel that the policy is not going to be implemented is because of the hybrid nature of governance in Pakistan. What is this hybrid nature? Military is the kingmaker. Civilian politicians are the proxies. Mullahs and militants are the tools which the Pakistan military uses to change the governance. Look at the pattern from Nawaz Sharif to Imran Khan and now to Shahbaz Sharif. The answer will be very clear to you. It was Tehreek-e-Labak which was used by Pakistan Army to unsettle Imran. And slowly the momentum began. Earlier, Nawaz Sharif was unsettled by the Pakistan military to ensure that Imran comes in. It's been a beautiful model they have learned after the Ziaul Haq and the Musharraf experience, that it is better to be behind the scene, control the system, and remain out of the blame game. I had a friend of mine who was doing, not really a friend, I would say a colleague who was doing the course in the United States with me. He was a colonel from the Pakistan Army. And I asked him, who controls the power? He said, sir, if you want to get your job done, go to the Pakistan military chief, army chief. There is a 2-kilometer line in front of his office, and not even one chap would be standing in front of the Prime Minister of Pakistan. And that's a reality. So therefore, I say that I have serious doubts on implementation of this policy. So in an environment of civilian instability, geoeconomics cannot be driven. That's the basic point which I want to make. Look at their military system as such. I somehow fail to understand who is running their military. Bajwa took over in 2016, and this point has been made by, I think, Brahma Chalani or some speaker, I'm forgetting the name. And we have had 4 chiefs changed during that period. From 2016 till date, 4 Indian Army chiefs have gone, have changed. They are continuing with 1 chief. Who is the dictator? Where is the virtual autocracy? The virtual autocracy is military autocracy, and we need to understand this as academicians, as security experts, as military planners, that for us the game continues as it was earlier. We need to continue to prepare. There are answers to our problems that we can discuss later on. uh, Also, the last point which I want to make here is that before I close my talk, is that you see that the classified portion is not, we are not privy to the classified portion. And the real intent of the policy will come if we go through the classified portion. It is there that we may be able to decipher as to where the policy is really looking at. Is it really looking at the human-centric approach? You will be surprised the education policy which has been contained in this particular document, people on ground have refused to follow it. And this is coming from no one but the people of Pakistan who were discussing this on that day in Pakistan Air University forum, that the madrasas have refused to accept the guidelines of the education policy. So implementation is the way, and each speaker after speaker said, gentlemen, ladies, implementation is going to be the problem of this policy. So let's wait and watch and see how events are going to unfold. Is this another piece of paper which will be consigned to dustbin, or it will really be seriously taken up by the governments of Pakistan? Is yet to be, the jury is still out on that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, sir. You actually considered a very broad canvas and you dealt many issues. And we have to appreciate the fact that this particular policy we have to consider with some pinch of salt, because the pages which are there in public domain, they are around 60, and they say that the real policy could be of 110 to 120 pages. So one half is missing, and we really don't know at this point of time that what is there hiding in that particular other half. But you highlighted that the isolation of Pakistan globally, even OIC countries, they are not with them. Another important point that you raise is the geopolitics should be at the center instead of geoeconomics. And the third point is very important. These car countries which are building bridges with India through Iran, and that's maybe giving some uneasiness in the Pakistani setup. Let me come back again to the speakers with some quick reaction. We'll start with Vaibhavi madam. This particular policy of Pakistan is surprisingly talk about the global human resource. So what do you think? What is your view on this?
Thank you, sir. Basically, global human resource, when they talk about, it is a kind of, again, as I said when I was talking, it is a language that has to be appealing to the global world. So when you are appealing to the international community for the help that they are seeking from the world, obviously they will have to use the words that will appeal the entire world. So the entire world to be attracted, then human security, the global security, the connectivity, and then side by side the peace with India. So this will show then the traditional policy, because all these years we see that Pakistan is known for more a reactionary policy. So made a policy during the Cold War, aligning or later on in the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, aligning with US. This was all reactionary. So this is the first time that Pakistan wants to show possibly that this is a policy which is a comprehensive policy looking at the global challenges. And globally, we know that there is a kind of normative framework that is developing, and this normative framework is about human beings and their security. And with COVID-19, the challenges have become more stronger. And so using of these words becomes very important for Pakistan to show to the world that they are changing. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The second question is to General Kamath, sir. The same way the ma'am has mentioned, they have used a very important jargons in that particular policy to seek global attention. The same way they mention about the space and cyber technologies. They are talking about hybrid warfare and the advanced technologies which could cause damage to them may be used by India. And they want to augment themselves in these particular emerging technologies and even artificial intelligence or cyber warfare. So what is your take on this, sir?
Firstly, these are very, very common things which have happened world over. The space warfare, information warfare, cyber warfare. And this is nothing new, and this will continue and it will go on. It is the growing of the warfare which is taking place all over the world. And in these aspects, India is much stronger. There is not much cause to worry. Point I'm trying to make it, one more point which I wanted to say, Army has not signed it. Do you think General Bajwa will listen to Dr. Yusuf's document and implement it? Any person who has read one page of Pakistan will know that this policy is as dead as a doornail. The implications for India, one or two quick points I'll say. One is nuclear deterrence will be there. 2 million workforce is joining Pakistan mainstream every year. How many of them will become terrorists if the human what you call security is not taken into being? Next, most important is activation of the Afghan front and the Durand line, and the Baluch Liberation Army will tie down Pakistan substantial forces on the western sector, thus reducing what is available to him to be employed on our eastern sector. And what you call we have to make our own mind clear that nothing has changed at all. And with the Prime Minister also changing, government also changing, and as it is, the policy being non-effective, I don't think that India need to do anything more than what it has done before. Jai Hind.
Okay, thank you, sir. It was a very apt answer to the question, which has also different dimensions put together. Now, one more question that was come in the chat box, that India had 4 wars. Pakistan is spending huge amount on defense. So how long we can carry on with this, the spending, which we have to also incur? And looking at the one of those reasons that you mentioned by General Dushyant Singh, sir, that India should spend more so that Pakistan will also spend more, and finally will run them out, just like that US did to USSR in a pre-Cold War era. So is it possible?
May I answer that?
Yes, yes.
See, when I said that point, I also would like to highlight here that the capacities of spending. The economy of India today is, in the PPP terms, it is the 3rd largest, in fact. In GDP terms, also, it's, I think, 5th largest. So we have the capacity to spend in a controlled and a balanced manner. See, our spending is, in fact, this time it was less than 2% of our GDP. In terms of volumes, it becomes very high. Of course, there are some problems in this that we have to set right, but still, the fact that our capacity to spend is more will prompt Pakistan to, go on spending even more, because it feels that the threat to it is primarily from India as far as conventional threat goes. And the best deterrence in this case would be not to take a nuclear confrontation, but to ensure that the country, your adversary, ends up on the side of losing without fighting a war. That's the challenge of any security expert. So today, I think one of the best ways is to keep prompting Pakistan to spend, and if it does so, it will be at the cost of the big pie, which even Dr. Palsule mentioned. It will not go towards the human security. It will go towards the geopolitics or military-centric approach. Ultimately, you will find countries collapsing, as it happened in Russia. You yourself mentioned about USSR. This is the best way to achieve your aims. We will get what we want. It will take some time, but we will get what we want. Conventional forces, as Ukraine war has proved, have a deterrence capability. It's not only nuclear, but even conventional forces. So therefore, I think it is very much doable. It's doable by India, given our capacities.
Okay, sir. As also you mentioned that at one particular point of time, if things go out of hand, if they do spending, the army might pitch in. And they say world over, the countries, they have their own armies. Pakistan, it is other way around. The army has a state. Army has a country.
Yeah.
And many times they say there are two countries army is running, Pakistan as well as Afghanistan. So in this particular context, looking at the black economy which is there in Pakistan, and their supports to a lot of anti-national forces in India, what could be our approach? This question
See,
to both
so would you like to take on?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, if the army steps in, which will happen in case if the country gets into a chaos, because the Pakistan army feels it is their responsibility to keep Pakistan together, right? If it does so, Pakistan army will get diverted from its primary aim, which is to defend its country. It will once again fall back into the Ayub Yahya Khan days, and it will get involved in internal governance in detail. That will further weaken its external defense. It will be and it has also been found that normally autocrats take sometimes very stupid decisions, and if that happens, India will have the reason to do what it wants to do. So in my view, Pakistan army stepping in would only add to the problems of Pakistan, and which will again help India in ensuring that ensuring its external defense is taken care of. And if Afghanistan gets into this, their problems are going to only double. They are not going to reduce. So it's problem all the way. Chaos is going to create further chaos. We have to worry only about the nuclear aspect of it, and that is something which we can't afford. And that is why sometimes we say that Pakistan should not get into such a chaos that it ends up them taking some stupid action of undertaking a nuclear action, which would be detrimental to the entire region, entire world. And for that, even the US and the other agencies are keeping a very close watch on Pakistan. And it is also said that the Pakistan military has a very tight control over nuclear button, and hence the nuclear aspect is not going to be played in a hurry. It will be a very considered and well thought decision, and they know that nobody is going to survive with that. So it's more of a nuclear deterrence which will remain in place as far as Pakistan and India are concerned.
Now coming to one odd point, which question is there: why attack is the best defense? Then why are we not enforcing a disproportionate cost on Pakistan and all? You can't attack for every 2 terrorists coming, a strategic action taking place. We have already done a Balakot strike. We have done a surgical strike. 2-3 terrorists come and we take as a nation. We did not really respond with such a force. Secondly, is what about black economy? Black economy will continue. We have to fight these type of hybrid warfare where the narco dollars are coming, weapons are coming. For this, you really don't have to go on an offensive. As it is, what is the state of Pakistan? It is crumbling under its own action. It is already the thing is happening in motion. It is a policy in motion which is happening. Only we have to sit and watch and see that our own interests are enshrined and defended and protected. And that's enough. I don't think we should really take offensive action. Attack is best form of defense. Is not really the present response required from a large, bigger state which has its credentials right up to take against Pakistan, which is not really worthy of being called an adversary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was very enlightening and interesting discussion since last around 80 odd minutes, and I can still see 25 attendees are there. Nowadays, to get even this much crowd is many times is difficult. But the topic was such an interesting, and so were our panel members. They are kept us glued to the screen through way of this particular webinar. Now we are coming to the end of this particular webinar. Now I request Shri Prabhakar Paranjapeji from the Finns to propose a vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, good evening, namaskar everybody. I must thank all the speakers on behalf of Finns for sparing their time and joining us. It's always great pleasure for the Finns when we have such experts on our platform. And it has been our endeavor to get in touch and keeping in touch with all the experts and the veterans. And we are thankful to you for your support, and we look forward to you for our continued journey into this arena of national security. And I must also thank all the participants, because as Mr. Kulkarni has rightly pointed out, they have been consistently supporting us, and today they were throughout. I did not find anybody leaving in between, except for some technical reason or so, which is which speaks volumes about the delivery, or rather the content which was delivered by our experts today. And I personally found they covered the very wide spectrum, who have formed that policy, what are the other implications, and especially the impact on how India should look at it. There were very quite good guiding points for us also. We'd like to take these exercises further, and we will keep in touch with you. We will keep you also informed about our activities, and look forward for your support by way of further participation. Even you can have your own suggestions for the topics or the areas which Finns should concentrate or focus or address in the time to come, because we take it as a continuous process. And we look forward for you from your support as a suggestion, your feedback, as well as your by way of your articles, or you can put your views on our websites, and you can always communicate to us on our website or our email. And we look forward, and I thank you once again on behalf of Team Finns. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.